Awesome. Thank you, David. That was great. Thank you again to Rubrik for sponsoring the event today. It's sponsors like Rubrik that help us have events like this. I know virtual events don't really cost us much because we're not, using an actual space, but it helps us with the cost of the giveaways and stuff for raffles and stuff. So we appreciate that greatly.
I just want to close loop here. I did go back and recover the unencrypted versions. I don't think I got a chance to come back to that, but we're back to the good set of data, by the way.
Nice.
That first recovery I did, I told it to recover the suspect files, but there's the good files back. All right.
Gotta love live demos.
Yeah, exactly. I just forgot to close loop it. I gotta stay true to my tech roots. No smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome. Thank you much.
Thank you.
So, Ray, are you ready to get going with your presentation, or do you need a few minutes?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, feel free to share your screen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, folks. Can you see me and hear me well?
Yep.
Perfect.
And we can see your screen. Awesome.
Cool. Okay. First of all, thank you for having me this time. I come from VMware. I'm a senior engineer. I have a bunch of things to show you, so I'm not going to lose some time presenting me. I'm going to share with you my presentation. I also come from the VMUG Mexico. I'm based on Mexico, so if you know Mexico, you know what things are good, like tequila and stuff like that. The title is to consume Kubernetes in your laptop to achieve readiness, and that means many things. But in consist, it's going to be something about, a talk about what is the best way to get your Kubernetes consumption up and running. And if you don't know Kubernetes, no worries. It's so pretty easy to do it and to engage with it. So let me help you with that road in this presentation. That's the goal of this. So first of all, let me take out my glasses. Docker in a nutshell. In a way, Docker it's like a virtual machine, but like a virtual machine, you think about Docker like a virtualization of the operating system, right? So that's basically what Docker does. Like Docker it's the mainstream, right? But containers comes from a long time ago, right? So, but there's a bunch of things that you need to know in order to get the dive on this. But no worries, it's just an easy ride. But we are going to see how to create a kind cluster in a bit, right? So, what is Kubernetes? In a nutshell, it's something similar like we have with vCenter Server. Most of the folks know what does vCenter Server in his functionality. So let's say that Kubernetes is the same, but for the containers in this case, right? It's far from being an orchestrator only, but do many things. At the end, Kubernetes is the platform for having the support for your applications in forms of Kubernetes containers. If I'm going so fast or you don't understand my bad English, please let me know, and no worries. I don't get it personal. But that's basically Kubernetes. So it has a bunch of cool things to support the containers. So this is a 101 in order to get deep dive in the what is going to happen with the demo that I have, right? First of all, it's to know the Docker network, right? So it's like the starting seed in order to see what is going on, because the deployment in your laptop for Kubernetes, for consume Kubernetes, for doing Kubernetes by your own, for testing all the cool things that the big boy says about Kubernetes, all the galore that you know Kubernetes in your laptop, comes from these. We are going to see why, but basically the network, the Docker network, we have a container and we have basically a peer, right? Which stands for the peer from the interface for networking in the container, and another interface that is presented by Docker for having this network connectivity. So it's basically the same, almost the same model, but in a way it's kind of different from Kubernetes. But what I want to show you from this slide is that how is the way that the pods, and when started the pods, it's like the minimum unit from the Kubernetes, and they are always, or most of the time, mapping one-to-one with the containers, right? So one pod equals to one container. And that means that you need a way to communicate. So that a way to communicate in being in the platform of Kubernetes is in this way, which everything needs to be connected in a flat network. That's the principle from Kubernetes, but you're going to see what is going to happen in a few. So, but that's not enough for having your things working, right? This is like a radiography of an explanation about what is going on. When I have my cluster of Kubernetes, and then I need or have the necessity to test something to reach the external networks, right? Everything is based on networks in this case, because that is the trick behind what I'm going to show you in a few, right? So from left to right, we have the three different models of present or expose, I would say, the containers to the external network. Well, not basically the external networks, but for communication. The first one is cluster AP, and then it's node port, in which you have a node port from the mapping from the container to the port of the node in this case that contains the pod, right? So if we want to see it like in a big picture, you have a VM probably, and that VM is your node, or could be something like a physical server. That's your node. In the top of that, you need to have probably a distro from Linux, and then you have like the platform from Kubernetes, right? In this case, that node port, it's the way that you communicate about using the ports. Something like having a path, right? So the last one is the load balancer, which is more sophisticated of the three, because you need to have, as the word says, a load balancers. At the end, those are the kind of services that you need to use for expose or to get your Kubernetes pods, your containers at the end of the day, right? But everything that you're seeing here, it's possible to get in your laptop, right? You just need to have like a, I don't know, an account and pay the bill with AWS or something like that. You could if you want. But let's say the baby step in order to get approach for this it's this way. So it's easy. So the extra ball, it's the ingress controller, which stands for something that is more abstract to the communication, but it's more about who is going to access within a specific URL, right? So you have policy routing, but not in terms of routing per se, but in the terms of the applications. So, by the way, you can reach the pods by its IP address, since they are like ephemeral. That is why you use all these kind of services. So probably you see like this guy doing many stuff and asking, how do I get in this world? How do I get like the greatness, achieve greatness with Kubernetes? How do I get involved with this? The answer is kind. There's another options, but I would say that the most compliance in a way, right? And in a strict sense of the word, the most compliance is kind, which stands for Kubernetes in Docker, right? So that means that you have you have Docker running in your virtual machine, in your laptop, and in the top of that, you create Docker containers to make the functionality as Kubernetes nodes, and in the top of that you have your containers, right? So it sounds like something like an inceptions in the times of virtualizations that some folks that have experience on. It's something similar. I mentioned that there's a lot of other options like K3S, or probably you have heard about the functionality that comes with Kubernetes itself that is called Minikube. But the difference with Minikube that is that for well, at least from my perspective, it's like with Minikube you just have one cluster of one node, and that's not like the look and feel that we are pretending in order to see what is the complete functionality of Kubernetes cluster. So, in the other hand, Kubernetes in Docker has the ability to create Kubernetes clusters with 2-3 nodes, meaning that you can play, you can have a sandbox, a real sandbox in your laptop with a real functionality of a real Kubernetes functionality, 100%, right? So we are going to see that. So, for example, this is related to the demo that I'm going to show you. It's very brief because I want to have your questions, your feedback, and you hammer me with your questions. What if I want to have, for example, I want to have Kubernetes, but not just Kubernetes. I want to have, for example, the testing or to get deep dive in the bits and bytes of the CNI container network interface from Antrea, from VMware, right? Which is an open source, by the way. But I want to see how this works, and I want to see a way to. I don't want to do like a kubectl, whatever. I want to have like a way to have visibility for a great demo, or probably because I need it and I'm testing like the tools, and then I want to see what is going on with that kind of things that the people call it a bitnami, and probably I want to see or play around with the applications. I don't want to do like a, do all the jazz about YAML and stuff like that. I want to get an easy way to consume that from a catalog, and finally have a testing for that, like from the perspective of continuous delivery, which stands for this tiny guy that we have in here. So that's basically what I have to show you to show you today. I built from the continuous delivery, continuous integration side. I have I created a tiny demo from the continuous delivery using Argo, which is an open source project. And this Argo have these connectivities for my repo from one side, and from the other side from Bitnami repo on Helm. And by the way, Helm is something like the easy way to install packages in Kubernetes, something similar that we have in Linux, right? So, but with all the facility, I would say that you just run a couple of things and you get your application up running, and that's what I have, right? But that's not enough, because I pretend to show you live how to connect all of this to Tanzu mission control, and that's going to be for only to have like a sort of control, right? And from the way of policies, for example, I can control to create backups, to say who is going to be able to connect from the standpoint of the namespaces and all such of things. I want to pause for a while if anybody has questions from this, or do you want to see the action? No questions? Okay, no questions. Well, let me just close this guy because it's it's on my laptop. You're going to see I have a Mac laptop running Kubernetes Docker, sorry, but in the top of that I have the Kubernetes. But I want to show you that because it's not very demanding in terms of resources, because the containers, in this case, the containers, well, let's put it in this perspective. All the containers to make these things that I show you before in the slide are consuming in the order of millicores, right? But that doesn't mean that the memory is going to be drained from my computer. That is why I have this application. So I taking care of the memory, which is a precious resource in this environment, and also in the only requirement to have this like a sandbox in my laptop, it's to have Docker installed in my environment. But far from that, I need to give hold on for a second, because I have it in another window. To give in for more resources to my Docker, right? Since this is the guy that is going to take care of the Kubernetes and all the things that I have been running. So with 8 gigs, it's enough. And I have enough. Well, apparently I have 7 CPUs, but this really, it doesn't hammer your machine if you want to try this. By the way, I have a gist for you. I just need to clean it up to share with you, and you have to practice. Well, you have something like a reference to practice all of this, right? So, but as I said, the memory, it's restricted since I have another things running. But let me show you what I got. So first of all, you can see here I have Octane up and running. But how this? Well, let me show you first the nice part, right? The cool thing. I have Octane, but it could be Canine or could be something like that. In order to see to have visibility in my environment, meaning environment, all the Kubernetes cluster that I can create inside of my on my laptop, right? So first of all, this is all this. I have the continuous delivery here. I have as well Kubeapps, right, in order to access to the catalog. But all of these, if you can see here, are running in my computer, right? So meaning that they are like a bunch of Docker containers running at the top of Docker containers, right? So it sounds kind of weird, but I'm going to show you that. So here's a get me all the pods from the environment that I have. But first of all, let me show you something cool. The only things that I say that I need to have running here, it's Docker, right? So Docker, oh, sorry. So if you see here, this is Docker and it's running just 3 nodes, right? Meaning that it's running 3 Docker containers, right? By means of kind, we are doing like using or leverage Docker to create these containers in one level, and in the top of that, create another containers for having Kubernetes, right? So if I get kind, I I have a cluster already created, call it Ernesto, right? By the way, the Ernesto is the Chihuahua from my mom, so it's a dog, right? But I have no imagination for the name of this demo, right? So, but the funny part is that it's easy to create your clusters, right? So it only requires a couple of lines, and it takes like I don't know, seconds, right? It's not the same as I mentioned as for example, K3S, because if anybody heard about K3S, it takes like a faster way to create the Kubernetes clusters. But at the end, we are testing all the environment. We want to have the look and feel, right? So, but with running just the create cluster in this way, we create just this cluster, and we can get, let me show you, to create I have notes here. Okay, so everything is created. So the other thing that I want to point you to have, it's Kubernetes or kubectl in your system, right? That is necessary in order to have all the things running and have interaction with the API cluster of Kubernetes, right? So, but those three things are the only requirements that you need to have in order to construct all the things that I show you. Well, don't get confused. All of these are like bots, but they come in, or I learned how to deploy these from the repos or from the documentation from the pages, right? Because, for example, I was planning to have for you a demo with a CodeStream from Realize Automation, but there were like a bunch of problems with exposure of the API that I mentioned from Kubernetes to get like an endpoint and being consumed by CodeStream. So I'd rather to select the Argo because it's an easy way to do it, right? So let me show you just really quick what I got here. You can see here in my default, oh, well, let me show you. What I got here, it's the Argo CD, which stands for the Argo project for having this continuous delivery that I'm going to show you. I have the default namespace as well. I have a bunch of things like Kubeapps and WordPress, right? The main things that I have running, that as I showed you before, I have the Argo CD, and I have like the Kubeapps for pulling the catalog of the Vietnamese repo by means of Helm charts, right? So that's the tricky part of that. But far from that, just you can see like this is like a real environment running somewhere, but it is not, right? It is all of this is running in my computer. Those are the nodes. I have an environment create for one control plane, and I have two workers, right? It doesn't mean that they are going to map one-to-one, but in general, those guys, meaning that these nodes from Kubernetes are going to map to one container, right? So you need to have enough room in order to have all of the things that I have running here, because probably you get something like your pods in pending state, right? So you can see here, everything is running, well, except for this guy, but this depends of the sync from Vietnamese Helm charts, right? But everything is running, and you can see as well that I have Antrea, I have such a bunch of cool things to test, right? But probably you're not familiar with kubectl, or you're worrying about this, but well, after installing all of these, you can get like a pretty nice user interface like this, right? As I mentioned before, I have this guy, which is my way to interact or to have visibility with everything. I can see all the apps that I have. I can see as well the namespace without running any command or anything like that. You can see as well that kind always put the name kind before the name of our namespace. So in this case, I have so many namespace. Everything that I'm running, like for example, the WordPress and the Nginx example that I have, they are running on the default, right? I don't want to get complicated with the things, but they are running here. And I have a bunch of things running, for example, in Kubeapps, this is only for having the application that supports this catalog that I can enter and I can get the things and I can select whether the application that I want to deploy. But first thing, just having a recap. I have my kind cluster of Kubernetes, and in the top of that, I can run or I can pull images from this catalog from Bitnami, which is free, by the way, just directly, right? So, for example, if I want to do like I don't know, Kafka, because I'm very big fan of that. Just be aware of the resources. I can select from here and just can get and deploy, whatever, right? So that's easy. But what if I want to experiment about the continuous delivery side of the house? Continuous integration is more about the developer side of the house. That is why I try to do the things from the world that I understand, which is infrastructure, right? So in this case, I did it with Argo. And start with doing the part of continuous delivery. Let me show you what I have here. First, I have, as I mentioned before, I have the Kubeapps installed. Kubeapps is from Bitnami, and just leverage the Helm chapters or the Helm chapters in order to install applications. As I mentioned before, if you want to install an application, in an easy way without having to worry about dependencies and such of things, you can do it directly from Kubeapps. In the other hand, if we want to have a salty way to do it by continuous delivery, that means that, I mean by that, having a way to have such a governance on what is deployed, on what are the changes, on I want to have all the time a source of truth, for example, of my repository from related to what is the description of the application of what it should be. I can do it by this easy way to do it with the Argo, right? So that is why I have in here Helm charts. And if you can see here, I leverage Bitnami catalog, right? So that is the difference between having directly from the dashboard and having here. And as well, I have two examples in this way. I have one from the Bitnami, and the other one is from my GitHub repository, right? So let's take a look at this. So for example, let me open first my repository. I have a demo here, which stands for just for having like a deployment, right? And this deployment has the description of how many replicas that I'm going to have, right, from the Argo. So meaning that, what is the meaning of all of these, right? The meaning is like, first of all, just before to enter in this call, I create a connection by means of SSH to my repository in GitHub, right? So since it's public, I just could do it in that way, right? There's a bunch of things regarding security and stuff like that, I know, but this is like the easy way to test it, right? So for the sake of purpose, for the purpose of the demo, I did it in this way. And then I just added my repository of my demo, right? So with that, I just synchronize it and I create these applications. Again, what is the difference if I create just this Nginx directly in my environment? First of all, if you want to do it in that way, it's okay. But if you want to do it in a way that you want to test all of these things in your laptop, this is the way to do it, right? Probably you want to use Jenkins or as I mentioned, CodeStream or something else. You can do it, right? So at the end, continuous delivery from this side of the house is just going to show you how to maintain all the Git operations in a way that you have a description, but it doesn't matter that it's going to be living, but it could be in the cloud in GCP or AWS or Tanzu Kubernetes Grid or Tanzu Kubernetes Integrated, whatever, right? So that's the difference. So if you can see here, it's running and just create the application. But the only thing that I want to show you with this, let me just try to get my notes here. Well, by the way, if you want to do like in my case, I'm very fan of the data plane. I can play web, for example, with Cilium or Multus for having more than one nick in the pods, right? Okay, so for example, I have these things right up and running. So, but what happens if I want to, and let me show you the power of container integration, right? What if I want to, let's say, I want to scale, for example, the pod that I have running here from the command line, right? That means that it's not going to be in compliance what I have in my repository in the GitHub. It sounds very elaborate, but it's not. It's just a bunch of things connected each other together to have like a good play at the end of the day. So the broker, let's say, it's the Argo who is going to take care of like you have this difference on this. Well, I'm not going to allow it, or I'm going to change it, or I'm going to do a rollback. At the end of the day, I'm going to take care of your applications, right? So this is a miserable Nginx example, but you can have more elaborate things, right? But all depends on your gear. So, for example, if we want to do the deployment for this. If we want to do the deployment for this, just directly from here, and we select, for example, oh, well, I want to change the replicas to number 2. Sorry for that. And it's going to do something like this, right? It's creating the container. Everything is fine. I just put it in manual mode and just taking note of that. All that I mentioned on having like this governance, whatever, I put it in just manual mode in order to see what is going to happen. If not, it's going to give me like an error or something. But it's going to, it's going to happen so fast, right? So in this case, I was able to create another replica from the same pod. And if you see here, it says, you know what, you're out of sync, meaning it doesn't mean that anything is break. It's just taking care of this. And if I do like an application difference, and I'm looking for what is going on with this guy, it says, you have already 2 replicas, and what you have in your repo, it says that you need to have, or you should have 1 replica, right? So what I can do with this, just do a refresh and probably get a repository and I see whatever, right? I don't need to do something else here. And then I can do like many things like from maintaining these. For example, if I can do a rollback, well, if that is the case, I don't have history here because this is just the application that I have running, up and running at this point, right? Let me show you the status of sync, right? And let me show you what I mean by having like the policy of sync here enabled in auto. Well, if I enable this is going to happen very, very fast and you're not going to see anything, right? So as I showed you before, here's the difference. Here's my manifest. Everything is fine. Just need to click here. And then I'm going to sync everything. And then it's going to say, you know what? You need to have just one, right? It's a simple example. But at the end, the potential is to show you how to maintain all of these. So for example, in the country, if I have like a, you know what, I want to have like a, just to, for sake of you believe me, let me show you. I just have one replica, right? But then if I a cool programmer, right, and I'm doing like a just extending my replicas, you see that I just modify these. This is not complicated. It's just a simple YAML for Nginx, right? And then I commit my changes, right? And I click the refresh, right? You don't have to have all of these clicks. As I mentioned before, it just enables the outsync, right? So then I could here, but probably I want to see what is the difference because before I'm doing, because I'm in paranoid mode and I want to check out what is going on. And then it says, you know what, in the repo you have 3 replicas and your current state is just 1. And then I do a sync, I synchronize everything, I don't care. And then you will see that will start to create, right? So that's the difference. That's the power of all of these in kind. At the end, everything is running in kind, right? So I don't know if you have questions for me. If not, we can see another bunch of things that are very cool. Well, if you don't believe me, for example, I have in here just before this conversation to test it. So I went to my default repository, right? I can take whatever, right? But in terms of services that I explained to you before, I need to check it out because I'm in the environment of kind, right? So then, for example, if I have, in this case, cluster IP, this is not going to work, right? And probably I need to modify the YAML. Again, this is not going to be allowed, well, momentarily, because I need to be in compliance with the repo, right? So these applications is up and running from the governance of Argo, right? So everything is running again in my computer. Nothing is like running far away or is connected somewhere. Obviously, you need to get all of these from the repos and stuff like that. And finally, let me show you how to do the connection with my stuff in the web with Tanzu Mission Control, right? So my computer have humble resources. It can be an old server, it can be a Linux server, wherever you can use it to test all of this, right? So let me just apply this. And what I'm doing right now is to create all the things that I need in order to have the connection or attach this cluster to the governance of Tanzu Mission Control. And I mentioned governance, but it is a different way from continuous delivery. One, it's for continuous delivery precisely, and the other, it's just for having your second day operations kind of these clusters. So let me see what is going on. Oh, by the way, I can do it here, or I can do it from the Octane, right? From the Octane project. It depends on what instance I'm on. And for example, yeah, oh, well, let me just get in the cube system, right? Oh, well, we are going to have somewhere, yeah, here, system TMC, which stands for Tanzu Mission Control. All the pods are, some of them are running, some of them are in pending state, but they're changing. So it's just that easy. Let me just verify the connection, and then me view my cluster. This is SaaS, by the way, right? This is in somewhere in AWS, right? And I have my kind Kubernetes cluster up and running. I can play, for example, with policies for having, let's say that I want to have like a restriction or network policies, for example, to apply microsegmentation in terms of pods, right? And by the way, I just enabled, for example, in this case, the plugin for having Antrea. And you can have also a bunch of cool things. For example, trace flow. I can start a trace if I want to see. Well, it gives me like a visibility, like a nice picture of what is going on with this graph. But in order to have that, I need to have a trace, right? So that's all of these. With the exception of this, this is in the SaaS, right? Everything it's in my computer. Again, is up and running. I just need to have Docker. Oh, sorry. Right, and that's the only things that are running in my computer. Again, it's an easy way to get like all such of things up and running and just playing around with all the things that are like in Boga, right? I don't know, guys, if you have any questions questions for me. Questions. Can you hear
Any
me?
questions? Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Is anyone running Kubernetes at all, either in a home lab or at work? Feel free to unmute yourselves and we can.
No, we're not running it.
Okay. I think
Well,
this is the way a lot of things are going. Go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just about to say that this is an easy way to starting with, right? I can destroy everything from here or leaving my computer running. I don't know. For example, you can see here, it says for a long time, right? So you can test everything you want, and it's a baby step in order to have a sandbox for everything on Kubernetes.
Yeah, containers is the way a lot of things are moving. Like a lot of applications are being rewritten to use containers instead of a single Linux appliance having multiple containers. So if this isn't something you guys are looking at now, you might want to look into it. VMware has some free training on it, I believe. Are you aware of that, Ray? I remember they had
the Tanzu Academy.
Yeah, The Kubernetes Academy, I believe it's called. Yeah, kube.academy. I'll put the link in the chat. There's some videos there on Kubernetes that are free for people to try to learn a little bit about this. So if you haven't already gone down that road, yeah, that's the site I was looking at. There's some great info there on getting started with containers and Kubernetes. Great stuff. So if you haven't yet looked into it, I would definitely try to keep up with this stuff. It's growing and it's not going away.
Cool.
So you can see. All right. Do you have anything else, Ray, or is that it?
Say that again.
Do you have anything else, or are
no,
done?
that's what I got. I just want to thank you for this opportunity. And if you have questions, I have a guest in order to show you more cool things there, and all the prescriptive, let's say, way to have up and running all of the things that I show you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.